we were making a bunch of the topics. We have a thread in here, and then like every topic, we were like, I think Christina would fit for this one, right? And it's just because like when we were starting, or when I was starting, especially the older ones, you were kind of like one of the golden stars, I think, for ambassadors. Like,
Yeah, I definitely kind of felt like yeah, like I was put out there a lot, kind of as like the my community seems kind of like the standard for small communities, and that put a lot of pressure on me.
yeah,
Um, 'Cause I joined in a weird way. I was asked by a Niantic executive to apply instead of like doing the normal thing. I still had to do all the self stuff, but like yeah. And I have two influencers or content creators in my community, and that's a whole other problem. Like I've got Alexa or Alexa, and then I have Billy of the Trainer Club. So like uh my community is really weird and it was a lot. But anyways,
we
okay.
have loads of content creators around here, and they just kind of
Oh yeah.
rotate through things. I mean, it's
Yeah.
California; they're all over the place.
Yeah.
We are central community ambassadors or content creators. Okay, so
It's true.
the basic intro is how'd you get into Pokemon, and
Okay.
then kind of leading into how you got into Pokemon Go, and then your community.
So I got into Pokemon through Pokemon Go. I'm an elder millennial. I'll be 41 this month. My younger brother was super into Pokemon when it first came out, and because I'm the older sister, I hated it just for the fact that he liked it. So it wasn't until and I came to the game kind of late, like 2017. My kids and husband were really into it, and I hated it. They would make me drive around really slowly, like looking for Snorlax, or so they could like battle in gyms, and I would get so angry. And I would see people out playing, and they'd be standing in the middle of the street to get an Eevee, and I'd be like, "What are these crazy people doing?" And then I started playing with my family just so I could help with raids. And then we got EX raid invites for Mewtwo. And that's where like my love of it came in. I went to this raid. There were probably 60 or 70 people in the middle of the day. It was a weekday. People I would have never met before. And it's very homogenized here. It's a very kind of like not a very diverse community in Central Oregon. And there were people of all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of ages. There were families, there were teenagers, there were retirees, there were like groups of like little kids that like were on their lunch break from middle school that like had ran out, like snuck out and ran over to get a Mewtwo. And there's this woman named Cheryl that I met there, and she's like 4'11", this cute little blonde grandma. And I looked at her and she was like, hi. And she was talking to me all nice. And then when she was trying to catch the Mewtwo, she was like swearing at it, like getting really intense. And I was like, I love her. Like, I love this. Like, it was just this fun, like atmosphere that I hadn't experienced in a long time. And after the 2016 election, I felt like everything was really weird and tense. And it was like all these people coming together for something as silly as a Mewtwo, which Mewtwo's awesome. But like at the time, I thought it was really silly. And after that, I was just like all in. I started playing like 6+ hours a day and organizing raid meetups. And yeah, so here I am now. Um, the other question was my community.
Yeah, just describe your community a little bit.
So my community is based in Central Oregon. It's a regional community. It's becoming more focused on Bend as more communities around us sprout up. Bend has about 100,000 people, but they don't live here year round. It's a tourist town, a mountain town. They're skiing in the winter. It's beautiful. I live in Redmond, which is north of that, about a half hour. Um, and I think we have 1,600 members on Campfire, but a lot of those members are Niantic employees and community ambassadors who joined after I left so they could like communicate with me. And a lot of people that are in our community are tourists that have come through on vacation, and they like came to a meetup and they just kind of stuck around. So I'd say like active members, it's maybe 100 to 200. Most check-ins at a meetup was probably like 140, I think. So it's not like a super big community. Bend's a good sized town, but like I said, like most people, most of that population doesn't actually live here year round. And there's a lot of like retirees, and not all of them are into Pokemon Go, sadly. So was there another question? I can't remember if there's anything else I
That
was
was
supposed to
all for the
answer.
intro.
Okay.
Honestly, those were the only questions for the intro. But
Oh,
I
nice.
mean, dang, 100 check-ins that I can't even talk. Oh my god. 100 check-ins for a small community? That's amazing.
Thank you.
That is amazing.
it was a real slog to get people to check in on Campfire after like them being like free from self and the self run like the self cards or whatever they were, the license thingies that we had, like um having that kind of break where like you could just give people code cards whether or not they checked in. That was really nice. I hate forcing people to check in order to get something. I have like this spiel down about check-ins and the check-in rewards still like it's permanently tattooed on my brain. uh, yeah, it was um, that was a big change from how it used to be.
Trying to transition back into a casual player. Was that really tough on
Yeah,
you?
it was really hard. And I wanted to help. The man that replaced me as a community ambassador was the man that I actually co-founded my community with, and he was my co-community ambassador when we started in the program. He'd quit early last year, and I told him it's a year from when I decided I was going to quit. I decided I was going to quit last year. The elite raids for Enamorous. That was like the first time where I was like, I'm serious, like I'm really gonna quit. And I brought it up to him several times. It's like, you're the only one that can do it. You're at all the meetups, like you know a lot about Pokemon, you know all the tech stuff for running like the Discord and Campfire and everything. And it finally got to the point in November where I was just like, I'm out. You have to do this. I filled out the paperwork for him and sent it to Leo before I'd even like okayed it with him. And luckily he's taken over. But I felt a little guilty about that. And I hosted like 140 meetups last year. I hosted an insane amount of meetups. So I felt like the community had gotten used to that. So I've hosted several meetups this month, like not as a community ambassador, just hostess. And it's been really hard for the community to not see me as the community ambassador and to like message me if they're having issues with the game or with Campfire or questions about like how to figure out which Dynamax Pokemon to power up, things like that. I'm just like, I'm just kind of me. Like, there's other people that can help. So I've really stepped back in the last 2 weeks. I'm not attending meetups unless it's something I'm super interested in. I didn't go to Community Day. I didn't go to Raid Hour this week. I'm trying to put a little bit of distance between myself and my community, like out of love and respect for the two community ambassadors that are there. Like they can handle it. It may not be the way that it was when I ran things, but that was not sustainable. And I don't think anyone should do things like that. So yeah, but it's been tough for sure. That was my baby. Like I have real babies and I have dog babies, but that community was like 8 years of or almost 8 years of like so many hours and like tears and relationships formed and falling apart. And yeah, it's also really nice to be gone. Be out. Um,
I
Honestly,
think that
oh my
leads
goodness.
into your topic pretty well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
The
mean, it also leads into Elmer's topic pretty well as well,
Hmm.
because I mean, aside from relationships and whatnot, geez, and that touches on the whole mental health topic as well. Like, how do we keep our mental health afloat, basically, through all this chaos when it comes to being an ambassador and when it comes to trying to um tell me that's not picking up on the mic.
I
I
heard
heard a
just a
dog,
little,
but
but
I
that
like
was it.
dog.
Okay,
It wasn't
damn
much.
Yeah.
it. Oh,
It's okay.
shoot,
it
it
was
did.
rat.
Okay. No, that was actually a dog.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, no. Like I said, the chaos between Niantic being an ambassador and the community. So
I feel like it's really important to set boundaries and actually stick to them. I feel like if you know you can only host the minimum number of meetups, the 8 community days in a year, letting your community know, like, this is what I can do for you. Does anyone want to step up and host? Or does anyone want to step up to be a co-community ambassador so there could be like check-in rewards? Because I can only do this. Like I have a job or I have a family or I have like health issues or I just can't like handle that much social interaction, but I want you guys to have a community. I want to be a part when I can, and sticking with that and not letting people guilt you and not guilting yourself into doing more than what you're actually capable of. And I think the server, if you're like a type A person or if you're competitive, staying out of it and just having notifications on when there's like the at everyone from one of the community managers, it's probably really important. I definitely felt a lot of stress and pressure to keep up with much larger communities and to kind of keep my community status, which I believe we're at the second highest, I think it was like master or something like, and that was really hard on me mentally. So yeah, I think that finding time also to play the game the way that you want to is important. I think if before you were a community ambassador or before you even started applying to be a community ambassador, if you really liked playing with just one person, or if you liked spending half of community day just walking with your headphones on, catching as quickly as you can, which is how I used to always play before I had become a community ambassador, make sure that you're doing that still. Like, make sure you're not losing the love that you have for the game, because it will burn you out if you're suddenly surrounded by it all the time because you're hosting and there's nothing fun that you get out of it anymore.
Definitely. No, yeah. Boundaries, setting limits, knowing your own limit as well.
Yeah.
Don't try to push yourself to do anything that you know very well you may not be able to do.
Yeah, definitely. And setting a budget, because
setting a
there were
budget or
definitely
having no budget.
yeah
Or having just
if yeah, definitely. And if you know that like you are on a strict budget this month, or like you've got a big bill coming up, saying like, okay, I'm not going to host this raid hour because I'm going to feel guilty and I'm going to buy raid passes, and sticking with it. Or if like there's an event ticket and you don't really care about the future Pokemon, but you want to make sure that like you're encouraging your community to do it, and you want to post that you've caught shinies or whatever, like just it's okay to not pay for everything and to not be a part of every event, because they are all the time. It wasn't like this before. I remember when like the weather boosted spawns started, like everywhere it was just Nidoran, and that was kind of cool. Like, oh, like this is just here, and you would just go out and catch. And there's too many events and too many tickets.
Have you seen the next couple months? It's like
yes,
Saturday and Sunday, and every
yeah,
day of the week. And
I still talk to a lot of community ambassadors, and I'm in like a little group chat with some of like the older ones and ones that I've gotten really close with, and I posted it for them like as soon as it like popped up in game, and there was like a panic, and then they went over to like the community ambassador server, and they're like, oh my god, like people are freaking out.
Oh yeah.
And it's like
you can only imagine the freak out that they had in there.
Oh, I know who would have been freaking out too and bitching about it. Like, I do not miss being in there at all. But I understand like we're told that we only have to do so much, and community ambassadors don't have to host everything. But there is that pressure now because of the tier system, and because of the way that like the physical merch works. Like, you're not going to get things if you have a really small community and you don't get the like minimum 50 or whatever check-ins for a quarter. If you don't get that many check-ins, then it sucks and it makes you feel bad. I've talked to a lot of small town community ambassadors, and like they're hosting every meetup possible, and even meetups for things that aren't events, like golden lure parties or trade meetups, sort of, just because they're trying to get people together, and they're so burnt out, and then they feel so defeated when they can't even get the box of code cards. I feel like everybody should get code cards. Code cards make the world go around. Code cards make it so that players who are free to play or on a really strict budget, or they're too young to be able to purchase things in game without parental approval, they can suddenly do a few more raids. They used to be able to put an egg in incubator, which was nice. But they have, is it a star piece or incense? I don't remember what's in the code
Star
cards.
piece, yeah.
Star piece. Yeah, but like it makes it so that they can play a little bit longer. So I think everybody should be able to get the code cards. I don't think it's fair that the tier system exists. I understand why it was created, because it isn't fair for us. It's like a micro community would get the same number of like patches as somebody in like New York or London. But it really started feeling like if you weren't in a super big community, or you weren't hosting every meetup, that you weren't as good of a community ambassador and your community wasn't as valid. And that wasn't Niantic saying that. Like, the community managers were trying to like push, like, set boundaries. You don't have to do all this, but being surrounded by other community ambassadors and seeing what they're doing, seeing what they're making, seeing what they're buying, it puts pressure on you, because you feel like, oh, that's what we're supposed to be doing. And I feel guilty because I love making stuff. I like love 3D printing and crocheting and stuff. So I would post the things that I made, and somebody DM me and they're like, I have RA and my hands are swollen and like I feel bad. Like, could I like buy some things from you? Because I feel bad that I'm not giving out like little trinkets at every meetup. And I was like, I felt horrible. Like, I'm just doing this because I'm a weirdo and I don't sleep. Like, you don't need to feel like you have to give things out, or you shouldn't have to. But a lot of people definitely feel that way. I would say probably the majority of community ambassadors feel like they have to keep up by doing more, and it just keeps getting more and more. And people are buying a cricket, like people are buying crickets, people are buying like those presses to make hats. It's so much money, and yeah, it feels like a job that you pay to do. And I'm not
And
blaming
that's part
Niantic
of
for it, but it kind of is Niantic's fault a little bit
that's
too.
also part of being burned out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, and then for my community, I saw the other communities had social media, and I was like, oh, that'll be fun. I'll do it. And then the pressure to get good photos and to take videos and to make sure that I had everybody's consent for them to be posted, and coming up with the different questions, making sure I was using the right tags. It was just like another thing on top of everything else. And that is not something Niantic pushes, but being featured in those community day photos it felt like such a privilege, like such a reward, like such a validation, because only so many communities from each like continent were featured. And that sucks if you're not. I was like super proud. My community's photo were like, it was picked a few times, but I know a lot of community ambassadors who are like busting their ass, and they have wonderful communities, and they're like out there like rain, shine, whatever the weather is, whatever's going on in their life, and they're never picked for that. Maybe because like their community isn't big, or like the photos aren't quite as like appealing to look at as some of the other ones that are posted. But it makes people feel bad when they're trying and they're doing everything and they're submitting their photos, and it's like the same people over and over and over again that are being featured. Just sucks. Like, I think Niantic needs to be aware of like the fact that that makes people feel really bad. Maybe they should be rotating through which communities get featured a little bit better. So
I'm sorry.
oh,
That
I
would be a really good idea, actually.
You need to drop it.
I get featured twice.
I got featured. I think we were featured 3 or 4 times last year, and we were featured 2 times in a row. And it made me, the first time I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then I was like, oh God. And that put a lot of pressure on me. I always kind of felt like my community was like the one that Niantic would talk about. And I would have community managers, and I know several staff members for Niantic and Pokemon Go. They'd be like, oh, like we talked about you at this meeting. Like we showed the pictures of like the hat that you crocheted at like the last like meeting that we did about like how we're going to promote the community, and like that is cool. It made me feel like I had to keep that level up of involvement as a community ambassador, or even go higher, because I felt like, okay, like I want to be a good steward for my community, and I want to be a good representative for rural communities and rural players. And like, I'm a crazy broad who was burnt out like 2023. I was burnt out, especially January 1st, 2024, when the code cards didn't work, when they expired a year early. Like, I remember just sobbing in my car because people were like, I tried to redeem my code card from like last week, and just waiting for like some sort of answer. So yeah, I think that it's cool to be featured and to be like looked up to, but then it also puts intense pressure, and people are only seeing like a really small part. They're seeing like the best part, like whatever you're sharing in the server or in on your like Discord or your Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is that you have, and they're not seeing you like freaking out in the car because somebody like DM'd like the nastiest message you've ever gotten because they're pissed off about like the featured raid boss for next week. Like, I got called the B word because somebody was so upset that elite raids had to be done in person. Like, I spent last Valentine's Day, like I told you, that was something I was like, I'm done, crying in my car at like 1 o'clock, parking lot for Park and Rec, because I got so many nasty DMs from people because we were in a blizzard. I was trying to do a driving raid train because elite raids suck so much. And I got called the B word. I got called selfish. I got called cruel because people weren't getting into the raids. It was like a whiteout. or because I wasn't willing to send remote raid invites because there weren't remote raid invites for those. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one that's gotten nasty DMs from people about things that like I have no control over at all. But yeah,
I'm
it
with you on
happened
that
a
one.
lot.
I'm with you on that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. People thinking that like community ambassadors have any power over what's going to happen in the game or what's currently happening, or that we can fix things. Like if there's like glitch in a raid, like I tell people like report it to in-game support, and if they don't get the answer they want, they're like, well, can you escalate it? I'm like, no, like there's literally, we've been told that like what our job is and what the community manager's job is, and that's not something community ambassadors can fix. If you've gotten a shadow ban, or if you've been banned because you were account sharing or whatever, like I've gotten so many messages from people who were cheating, who weren't even in my community, but like saw an Instagram photo from my community and they're like, can you save me please? Like I didn't mean to do it, I won't do it again. I'm like, no. And then they would get mad because they're like, well, you're a community ambassador. Like, I'm not an employee of Niantic. I'm not paid by Niantic. I have no more power than anyone else.
Pay attention, viewers.
Yes, like we can't do anything. Well, I really can't anymore because I'm not a community ambassador, but like you guys can't do anything. Like there's nothing. And the community
really
managers can't do anything. Like that's not their job. You know, take it to support and hope for the best.
Emphasize
Yeah.
it.
You're
All we are volunteers. That's
Yep.
it. That's what a community ambassador literally means. We're just a volunteer.
Yep.
We're not paid or anything.
And the community managers have made a really big point that the community ambassadors aren't even volunteers for Niantic. You're volunteering on behalf of your community, and Niantic is in kind of like a partnership with you as the representative for your community. You're really supposed to be just representing your community, and your community is supposed to follow these rules, and that's kind of it. Like Niantic kind of, once you're accepted, they do what they can, but then you're pretty much on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, you're the community ambassador now? Have at it.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah. I would always
Living
encourage
here-
people to start their own community and apply to be a community ambassador. And they'd be like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to give up my weekends, like every weekend. I'm like, okay, like I don't either, but I'm out here, like either like, you know, try to do what I'm doing or shut up and just accept the fact that like you lost a raid pass. Sorry.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, no, I agree.
That took a
Well,
spotlight.
that's where like the transparency about what it is to be a community ambassador, I think that it would really help to weed out bad applicants before they even apply. Like, it's not even just the financial cost, because I know there are community ambassadors who are able to do it for free. They'll show up to meetups, and once they're 2 raid passes or 3 raid passes, if they do that that like line for the research, they just kind of walk and hang out with their community, and like that's super cool if you can do that. Like I never could, but it's cool if you can do that. But you're giving up your time and your energy, and you're often giving up your experience in the game. It becomes about everybody else's enjoyment and answering questions and listening to complaints instead of being able to enjoy the game. And all the community ambassadors that I know and that I respect, they love their community a lot, but they also love the game. Like that is contagious. Like when something is exciting to you, when you still get pumped for getting a shiny or a hundo, or you get pumped for somebody else getting that, like that's what makes the meetup experience fun. So when I hear stories about like community ambassadors, like quote unquote hosting meetups, but their communities never met them and couldn't pick them out of a lineup, or community ambassadors who will stay in their car the whole time because they don't want to actually socialize, but they still want to be the only community ambassador for the community, and they block people from being their co-community ambassadors. It's just gross. Like you're really not getting anything for yourself out of this except for hopefully like pride in your role as a leader and enjoyment from like meeting people and bringing people together. You're not getting anything financially. Like I said, you're not getting like insider information, like early information. The people who leaked a lot of stuff, the community ambassadors like kind of written that for everybody. Like I know there's some like little things, but it's not like you're not finding out what the raid bosses are going to be in 6 months. You're not finding out what the big feature Pokemon is for Go Fest in 2028. Like it's not like that at all. You are not getting anything as a community ambassador except for maybe like an event ticket for the global, because those are big ones to host, and it probably helps encourage community ambassadors to host those meetups. It helps Niantic get those check-in numbers. But other than that, like you're getting the same thing that everybody else is getting. You're getting the research. So, um, yeah. So if you want to apply out there, I'm not trying to deter people from applying because there are a lot of great things about being a community ambassador. I loved it for a long time, but you should do it for your community and not because you think you're going to get something really cool out of it. Besides just giving something cool to your community.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Honestly, that was a
Yeah,
major
we
point
were
of doing
this.
this
Mm-hmm.
in
yeah,
the first place because there's such a misconception about the whole thing, like
Yeah,
player-wise and ambassador-wise. What's
yeah,
up?
we were this close of getting information ahead of time, but somebody has to ruin it for us.
Yep,
yeah,
immediately. It's up
yeah.
immediately after
It
it
was
gets
what,
posted.
like a 10-minute leak?
It was less than
As
10
a
minutes last time.
Oh,
It
that's
was
right.
like it
Less
was
minutes.
like
less
Yeah.
than
30
10 minutes. You're
seconds.
right.
It was like it's impressive
And
how fast they can get it up there.
and that's always been an issue.
Yeah.
It's always been an issue. Like I know who some of the leakers are, and I know that they've like repented. But like it's just and then, like Niantic knows. Like I know because Niantic knows, and like it's just such a bummer because it would really actually help the community ambassadors a lot. It was always really stressful when there would be an event coming up on like the weekend and you're on like Tuesday and like you don't know if it's a raid meetup, you don't know if it's a hatch day, you don't know what it's gonna be, but you want to host it because you want to bring the community together and you want to get the check-ins and you want to have, you know, another event on your campfire list. And there's just no way to really prepare besides just waiting for like the public announcement. Um, I know Niantic doesn't want community ambassadors to leak things and they shouldn't, but having that early information, like as soon as they've decided it, would be really great because I know there are people who get that information, like the content creators. That way they can make like their videos like ahead of time and release them when Niantic releases information. And like I like a lot of the content creators. I love a few of them, but they don't really need that information. Like something on YouTube, like cool, they're gonna get like 10,000 views or something. But like I'm the one that's like on the ground. You guys are the ones that are like on the ground, actually having to get this group of people together, keep them safe, come up with a plan for like a route that you guys are gonna go on, make sure that you have band-aids and first aid kits and water bottles and like extra sunblock and extra batteries. Like I carried around this heavy backpack that was almost 40 pounds just filled with like little portable chargers and different types of cables because somebody's phone was always at 1% and they needed a battery. So yeah, I think that the community ambassadors deserve a little more, I'm gonna say respect from Niantic, since we really are doing the work for like nothing or next to nothing. I know in a lot of places that the community ambassadors keep like the players in that area like playing. Like I don't think I would still be playing the game if I didn't have a group of people to play with. Like especially uh I won't get into Gigantamax. I will yeah, I remember that was like one of the last tirades I went on in the community ambassador server because that first day of Gigantamax battles was such a nightmare. But if you don't have other players, you're not going to be able to do the Dynamax legendaries. You may not be able to do like failings. If you're a newer player or a player who's free to play and you live in a place where there aren't other people like leaving Pokemon behind there or like randomly dropping into a raid that you've dropped into, you're kind of screwed. And as like a more rural player, the cost of the max mushrooms is ridiculous. It is really frustrating. I feel like a lot of the things in the game just aren't made for rural players, which really sucks. But that in particular felt like a real like kick in the craw. That like $5 or approximately $5 for each one if you're not buying the bundle for 30 minutes, and you may not even win the battle.
Speaking
It's just
about the mushrooms, the way how Niantic does research for the poffins, I feel like Max mushrooms should be the same way.
yes,
I feel like it should
absolutely.
be
Mm-hmm.
because they are expensive.
Yeah,
For 1,000 coins, like dude, that's 10. What is that? Like $10?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
expensive.
So I feel like
And
they
now
would make the game better with the research for at least a free max mushroom.
I agree. I also wish that they would make the event tickets purchasable with in-game coins instead of having to use actual money. Especially now that you can't get the community tickets for checking in, it would help a lot. It really angered a lot of my community members when that change was made because not only did it mean that like they were getting like the ticket, like that they're saving $1. Maybe they didn't even have $1 to spend. And so they're able to play longer. But it was also a great way to get shinies and better shinies, because with research, you're guaranteed like a base for the IVs. So, like, it was this cool thing, and you would get like a fully evolved one. And um, I almost would rather have that return for communities over the check and rewards for like spotlight hours. Like, if there could be like a trade-off, like, I don't think most people I hosted spotlight hours because I'm insane. But I don't think most people do. If they could find a way to take whatever they budgeted for that, or some of the items in the community ambassador kits. Like, I don't know like
Mhm.
how many people actually want most of that stuff, and especially since it's team branded. Like, I had so much Instinct stuff that I was sending it to a community ambassador in Florida because she had a bunch of Instinct players, but like my Mystic stuff was always gone. I always had a bunch of other stuff left over. I would have much rather had tickets with check-in over any of the physical items. I mean, I know the Go Fest pins were cool. Maybe not that one, but like the rest of it, like, how many keychains do you really need, especially if it's like the same one repeating several times in a year? I don't know.
How many
Niantic,
pins
please stop giving us gold patches.
or
We don't need more gold
Yeah,
patches.
patches?
yeah, no more patches.
No
The
more patches.
stickers are
Because I mean,
gone.
honestly, that's just going to be more money out of our pockets again, because people are trying to find creative ways to give those out, like
Hmm.
buying snapbacks, buying beanies, like anything to iron them on. It's just more money out of our pocket again.
Yeah.
So,
And it feels wasteful to not use it. So, like, when I was still a community
mhm.
ambassador, anything extra that I had, I would send out usually to new community ambassadors or community ambassadors whose kits hadn't arrived. I always tried to kind of like spread the wealth, because my community is like the same people at every meetup. And like you're saying, like, how many patches do you need? How many Pokemon Go patches is any person going to use? And I don't want to
Exactly.
throw them away because they cost money and somebody made them, and Niantic, paid for them to be sent to me, which I appreciated. But the check-in rewards for community days, and also it was so nice when Max Particles were a reward for Dynamax and Gigantamax. Please,
Yeah.
Niantic, bring that back. I hosted Max Mondays this month for my community because there weren't check-in rewards, so it wasn't like an issue if I did it. And it takes so much time to get the max particles the day before and make sure that you're at just the right amount to be able to do a max battle, a legendary one the next day. And then you have to go find power spots that you haven't interacted with that day to get more max particles. So you can just do 2. And for like a raid hour, like, you can use your coins to get raid passes, and they're not that expensive, but the max particles are expensive too. Like, this whole thing has become very expensive, and it definitely feels like Niantic is moving the game into the max battle direction, which could be really cool if it had some reworking. My God, it feels like such a money grab. And I know they're making money off our data. Like, there's no hiding anymore. Like, everybody knows,
Mhm.
that they've
Definitely
built
need
like the,
some improvements.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Because
I'll take
another thing
credit with
is
some of that
for
donation.
Max.
What is that?
So,
Yeah. Oh, the instinct. Well, she's not the ambassador anymore, so sorry.
I know, yeah. Yeah, you'd have to talk to one of my community ambassadors. I don't know what they're gonna do with their stuff. There should be a bunch of it because nothing's been handed out except for code cards since I retired in November. So I don't know. Maybe they're giving them out or covering their body in patches at night and rolling around. I don't know. I don't know.
We feel
Whatever they
that we
need.
need more diverse or different types of merch that they should hand provide the community ambassador to hand out, because even for me, I get like 1,500 check-ins,
Nice.
1,500 check-ins, and then most of them are some of the loyal members of our community. But then I've given most of them the same exact patches, the same exact
Yeah.
pins. So it's kind of like I feel
Yeah.
like that they should, provide us more.
Yeah. The Go Fest pins for last year were like a huge hit. Like, that was so cool because it was
Mhm.
something that was exclusive for the community ambassadors. It was a one-time thing. I would have much rather see wild area pins than like all the boxes that I got in late summer and fall. I think that it would have been more appreciated by the community and a better use of their money if they just focused on like the really big events and then brought back tickets. And I don't care about patches, and I know you guys don't really care about patches. I don't know anyone who cares about patches, so let the patches go.
FYI, we're not getting Go Tour pins.
Oh, for Nova or for Go Tour in New Jersey? Any of it?
Or the
Okay, yeah.
I think they will focus on Go Fest from what they mentioned.
That's too bad. I feel like the tours are a lot of times better than
Mhm.
Go Fest. I've had a lot of fun at the in-person tours. Yeah, that's Kyurem's my favorite Pokemon or legendary Pokemon, and I love Unova, so I was really hoping that it would be a little different than what they're actually doing with it. But I'm still holding out hope it'll be cool. And you don't have to host every meetup. I definitely put that pressure on myself, and I feel like in the community ambassador community there's a lot of pressure to get a certain number of check-ins in order to be like a valid community. And if you don't have a big city, or like if you're in an area like you guys are where there's so many groups, that it's not a competition, but it kind of is now that everything is based off of check-ins and like the total number you get each quarter. It's a bummer, and it puts a lot of pressure that shouldn't be on community ambassadors on them to keep hosting, keep pushing the check-ins, and to encourage players to come to their meetups either through like contests with prizes or giving out things. Yeah, it's a bummer.
And I can definitely agree because well, I mean, my community isn't that big. I say we probably on big events, maybe we average about 40 to 50 check-ins or so. So I'm really surprised we even made it to legendary tier league. I'll be honest.
Nice.
But I've mentioned to the guys before, I actually ended up moving out of the area, unfortunately. So it's gonna take me a lot just to drive to the community to host events. Unfortunately, I'm not doing raid hours anymore. Raid hours were part of the check-ins that I used to host. Spotlight hours, I wouldn't really host too much unless it was something I was interested in, like Swirlix, Togedemaru. Definitely. I wanted the shinies really bad. Wooloo is still my unicorn. I haven't caught a shiny Wooloo just yet. But yeah, no, it's a whole lot of pressure people don't understand, and I agree. It's a whole nother pressure when it comes to people looking up to you as a community ambassador to pretty much carry them within the game, because they expect you, because of the knowledge that we have and resources and whatnot, they expect you to have like some, I guess, like high end top tier Pokemon to be able
Yeah.
to carry them in raids and whatnot. So I know what you mean when it comes to like, I would hang back when it came to the smaller groups because I wanted to help them. I wanted to help them complete the raid because that's what they're there for. So there definitely is, aside from the whole funding the community, it's also you spending money on yourself so that you can play the game as a player. So yeah, people,
Definitely.
yeah, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot.
When I have the utmost respect for the community managers. I wish that Niantic would give them more support, and I wish that there was a way for the community managers to actually regularly visit community ambassador communities and different types of community ambassador communities, like go to LA one month for a community day and then try to go to like rural Pennsylvania for a raid hour the next month, something like that, where they could see what it's actually like at these meetups. I don't know if like a surprise visit thing, like I don't want it to be like a secret shopper where it feels stressful all of a sudden, but to really see what community ambassadors put into it, because not everybody puts the same degree of effort into their meetups. But I feel like most of the community ambassadors are really invested, like personally invested, even if they're not super financially invested, in making their community as good as it can be, and trying to pull as many community members in and trying to make sure that they have fun so that they keep coming back and keep playing the game. Like it's such a useful tool for Niantic. I just wish that there was more support for the program. Hopefully.
They
Unfortunately.
actually did some changes about setting up guides.
Yeah, I got to be a part of that discussion before it was. Oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to. Before it was made like official. I just was asked some questions about, because I was basically asking or acting as a moderator for the community ambassador Discord server. And I was just like, this is bad. This is a toxic place right now. Not always, but there were a lot of community ambassadors who would message me privately and be like, this person is harassing me. They're a community ambassador. I don't know what to do. And I tried to help them through it. Or somebody saying that they were too afraid to ask a question in the community ambassador server because they were afraid the community ambassadors would jump down their throat about it or say they were stupid. And I'm glad that there are guides now. I know whom they are, and I'm really happy. I love Tara. Like, Tara's my girl. Uh, I love that woman. Not just like Pokemon Go. Like, we met through Pokemon Go, but she has been one of like the best friends that I've ever had. So I miss the good community ambassadors a lot. I still talk to about 20 of them or so regularly, but like that camaraderie, that kind of like family aspect, because nobody else knows what it's like to be a community ambassador except for another community ambassador, and like nobody knows like the stress and pressure, and even if communities are different, like the experience has a lot of similarities depending on, I guess probably what program you're in, like community ambassador, community leader. But yeah, I miss that. I feel like that was a good resource, the really kind community ambassadors.
What do you think Niantic should do to, lessen the stress of the community ambassadors? Should they add more community managers or more employee to help us out?
Both, all of the above. I think there needs to be a bigger budget for hiring community managers. I don't think it's fair for the three of them. I don't want to name them because I don't know who's going to watch this, but like, we know who the community managers are. It's a lot of stress on them. There's like a lot of things that happen behind the scenes, like a lot of difficult situations that community ambassadors get stuck in, and the community managers have to take that on too, along with trying to, manage the community ambassadors and then all the other aspects of their job. Sorry. I know that one of the community managers that handles the applicants, that he is just on a contract and he's not like a permanent employee. Like, I think you need him. Like, this man needs to be a full-time permanent employee. He is doing the Lord's work. He is busting his buns to make sure that things run smoothly. There needs to be more like that, more of that person, more of the other two. But yeah, I think that having people who are in your community, who are trusted hosts, they could be admins or moderators, just people that come to every meetup. A community ambassador, since there can only be two per community, they should be able to nominate them. That person goes through background checks, that person has their account checked, and they should be able to host meetups with rewards, because right now the pressure is on the community ambassador to be at every meetup for the whole time. Otherwise, people don't get rewards. And it's not even just the like in-game rewards anymore. It's like the badge. Like, everybody wants to get to platinum on the cool like check-in badge. There's the reduction in like egg hatching distance for checking in and being at a party. There's just a lot of things where it's a different experience for the players if the community ambassador isn't there. And that puts pressure on the community ambassador to go to meetups that they don't want to host meetups that they don't want to, and to get stuck at a meetup for longer than maybe they would want to. So yeah, definitely both of those.